Hey guys, JR here, your grumpy sound guy, and today I want to give you a really cool tip and talk a little bit about a split snake, which is right here behind me, and how I use that to make my life way easier in a multi-band setting and that sort of thing. So let me flip the camera around here and kind of just go through this thing with you. Hang on. Okay, so what we have here is a passive analog split snake. This is a 32 channel. I think I picked this thing up off of eBay, and it has a hardwired tail, which is this. And I think it had come out of an install where someone just kind of blunt cut all the XLRs off. So this is a CBI splitter with all Nutrix connectors. So I just soldered on all Nutrix XLRs, and that gave me that. On the back of it, let me spin it around here. On the back of it, it has XLR outs, as you can see there. And what I did was bought a very expensive 50-foot, 32-channel XLR fan to XLR fan to give me a 50-foot tail out that way. And basically what this does, and I know a lot of you guys already know what this thing is and how it works, but you know, I have people who regularly watch my videos and don't know these things. So I'm always trying to teach and to train from an elementary perspective. So basically we're gonna plug all of our microphones from the stage into this thing, and it is going to give us two tails out. This short one will go to me in a festival setting. I'll run that to my control rack, to my M32, and then I have a 50-foot tail on the top that I can reach the band's mixer that they're using to mix their ears with. Many times they have a split themselves, and this whole setup will really confuse them because they're so used to all the stage inputs coming to their snake first and then giving the house guy a tail to go into front of house. The problem with that is let me turn the camera around here. Yeah, so the problem with that is that then I'm having to plug and unplug all of my, stuff in the M32 from band to band to band. When if I plug everything into this thing first, then I'm using this sort of as a patch bay. I plug my tail into my M32 once all day long, so it saves my DL32 stage box a whole bunch of wear and tear that way. And then I just have the 50-foot tail ready to go to their thing, and most of the time I just plug it right into their splitter. I have the stuff labeled here and on each end, on each tail, so it's, kick is kicking on both tails, channel one, and so on and so forth. So that really streamlines multi-band events to where if they're using wedges, that's fine. We already got wedges up. The cool thing is now this will give them wedges and ears if they want them. Now, a lot of bands want you to turn the wedges off because they just want to hear their ear mix. Some bands really appreciate, a wedge mix on top of their ears. This makes this super, super easy to work through and to make happen, in that festival setting where you have multiple, bands going on and you don't want to just beat your DL32 to death all day long. I had a guy that is a house guy at one of the systems I recently installed in Maryland, and he called me and said he was having some problems with his DL32 not giving an output signal. And basically what was going on is those guys were trying to jump through a bunch of different hoops in a bunch of different ways internally in the routing with the M32. Now, the M32 gives you a ton of options and features to be able to do internal routing and split 1 through 16 to AES50A, and then the rest of it to AES50B. And, the thing is that you're just adding a whole layer of potential issues when you're doing that from band to band to band all night or all day long, because there's a whole lot of room for error there, and honestly, if I was setting up that system somewhere and it was going to have that weird kind of split thing and that's how it was going to live its entire life, it would be fine. But you have to understand all these middle market consoles and desks, especially the Wi-Fi mixers and stuff, they don't have like super huge amount of processing power to really jump through a whole bunch of hoops real quick, It's not a pro level console, it's a middle market console, M32, it's up there with, all the other guys, the Yamaha TF series and the Q Allen and Heath. The SQ Allen and Heath probably does have enough muscle to do a lot of that stuff, but that's a 96K console. We're talking about 48K consoles here. So, it's best just to set those things and forget them and use something like this to make your life way, way easier when you're trying to do that multi-band thing. Everything comes to this first. One tail is permanently into your DL32 all day long, and then the tail up top is going to go to whoever needs, stuff for ears. And, then when you have bands that don't have that and just going to use wedge mixes, you do nothing, because this is already connected to your mixer and your stage box, so, you're good to go there. I'll go ahead and take one step further with this and kind of go with you how I set up my routing. Because now that I have this thing pulled out of the trailer and set up and have everything labeled, it's really a good opportunity to have that conversation about how to set up your routing. Because when I go out to do, walk-in scene set gigs is what I call them, which is where you're hiring me to come and set up your new digital console and create a start scene. So you have a start place. What happens is I come out, we go through sound check. I usually load, if it's an M32, I usually load my start scene in, and we're 90% there, with that. That's a beautiful thing about digital. If it's something else, like I recently did one with a XR18, the way they have the channel routing and stuff set up is it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like if channel 1 is lead vocal and channel 2 is snare drum and channel 3 is the key, and then channel 4 is, acoustic guitar, channel 5 is kick, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. So let me turn the camera around here, and then we'll talk a little bit about, why I have things routed and how this is typically the way you're going to find most, pro level, even touring guys, setting up their channel, setups. So hang tight. I'm going to turn the phone sideways here for this. So as you can see, what we do is we start with drums, kick, snare top, snare bottom. Most of the time that snare bottom channel ends up being a ride cymbal mic, because we don't do snare bottom on a whole bunch of middle market stuff. I'll do snare bottom when I have like a national or a big regional act that, really want all the buzzers and whistles, in which case we'll probably do 2 kick channels, one in, one out, snare top, snare bottom, but that's more of a festival kind of setup. This is typically the routing that works for 99% of the shows that I do here in the middle market. Hi-hat, rack 1, rack 2, floor 1, floor 2. That pretty much, those first 8 channels pretty much cover the drums. And then pad is a drum pad or a drum processor. If you have that next to the drums, bass, acoustic, guitar 1, 2, and 3, key 1 and 2, and then vocals 1 through 6. Then 23 and 24 I have laid out as band in. That's when I have bands that show up with their own mixer, their own sound guy, and we're basically just providing racks and stacks, which is front of house cabinets and power for those front of house cabinets. And I'll just give them a left, right in on my system, and then they have complete control over, what's going on through their mixer. The last batch of channels, the bank, is horns 1 through 4. And then, I forget what I had here for S1, 2, and 3. I'm trying to think. I can't remember off the top of my head what I had those designated for. It's very rare that I get down into that last bank. I mean, you can really do 90% of the middle market with 24 channels, I typically only have 3 or 4 vocals. I typically only have 1 or 2 guitars. If it's a country band, I'll have like fiddle and stuff like that. I'll put that down there on those S1, 2, 3, and 4 channels, that 29 to 32, and patch them wherever I need them. Or I'll use the horn channels for auxiliary instruments, mandolin, guitar, or mandolin, banjo, fiddle, things like that. If they have a horn section, okay, we'll just go ahead and use those other channels, for that as well. Or we'll go up there, we'll take the band in left and right, we'll take those channels out and we'll use those. So it gives you some flexibility, but this stamp of a channel input routing is pretty standard. You're gonna find something very similar to this on even the pro touring guys. They're gonna have just 2 kick channels, 2 snare channels. They'll have overhead channels in there as well. I kind of use that snare bottom channel as a ride cymbal mic on the right side of the kit, and then the hi-hat on the left side of the kit. usually most of the stages we're on are kind of shallow and small or medium size, so we get a lot of cymbal bleed through the vocal mics. So we really don't bother most of the time with overheads on top of that ride and hi-hat mic. In fact, I've had a lot of small rooms, I don't even mic the ride or hi-hat, you know, because it's just gonna bleed, especially if the drummer's singing, you know, it's gonna bleed through the vocal mics. So that's basically a setup that works and kind of gives you some kind of uniformity to how you're mixing channels. So let's turn back around here and talk some more about this. Yeah, so there you go. So that's kind of how we do business in CLP audio land. And that's pretty much what I see, you know, in most clubs I do walk-ins in and stuff like that. So that's pretty standard. So I always try to set everybody's mixers up in some configuration close to that. If there are only 16 channels, obviously there'll be, you know, there'll be less, like there maybe only be one guitar or two guitar channels or one acoustic channel, or I mean, no acoustic channel. It just depends on the band and how they want to do, you know, their ears. A lot of bands are doing ears without drums in their ear mix, so that saves them, you know, 6 to 8 channels of drums, so they can easily get away with even, you know, an 8-channel split or something like that for their ears. Yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how that works. This setup has been bulletproof for me. It saved my rear end and saved me so much time and so much headache on gigs. I have had some situations where I did a show last summer, with a fairly sized regional band, and the drummer just could not wrap his head around what was going on here with this thing, and was kind of yelling and screaming at me about how I wasn't getting his signals. And I really was, you know. They had something on their end in their ear rack that was not correct or plugged in right, and that's what ended up being the thing. He did come to me later and apologize for that and made it right, but this is not common hat for most, you know, B and even A bands, you know, to use things in this configuration, because they're like, you mean you're going to plug your splitter into my splitter? Well, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. I mean, we don't have to plug it in your splitter. We can unplug your splitter tail from your mixer and plug everything directly into your mixer, but that's really kind of redundant. I would just plug it into the front of your splitter and be done with it. Usually if they'll just get out of the way and let me do what we're doing here, they'll find that it works just fine and everything's where it needs to be, as long as I have all my patching correct here, because we're running 2 drop snakes to this thing. You're running a 16-channel drop upstage at the drums, and we're running a 12-channel drop downstage across the vocal line where there might be keyboards or acoustic guitars or things like that. So from band to band, some of that stuff may change here, and then my A2 just tells me what he changes. We go to here, and like I said, use this as a patch bay. We usually got it up off the ground, so you ain't down laying on the ground like you are with the DL32, trying to get things plugged in. You plug that in once and you just do all your patching here, and bam, you're good to go. You know, that just makes life way, way easier, and it will make things flow really cool and make you look like, hey, you might actually know what you're doing here. You know, especially when you have that situation like I had last year where the guy was adamantly convinced that I was lost and had no clue what I was doing, and then when it all came out in the wash, maybe the Grumpster did kind of know what was going on. So thank you guys. I love y'all. Appreciate the support. Please share these videos with your friends and people you think can benefit from this information. I make no money on this. If you'd like to donate money, that'd be super cool. I love money. But if you'd like to hire me, you know, to come and do a start scene for your band, or work out some of the problems you might be having in your ear rig, or if you're looking for someone to, you know, put together an ear rig for you, that's not typically cheap. You know, you're probably going to be around 10 grand, I would guess, easily 12 grand before that's done and over with to go ears. That includes all the units and everything. And I'm just kind of rattling that off the top of my head, so don't hold me to it. It may be the way inflation has been and the way gear prices have been going through the roof. You know, I may be 3 grand off one way or the other. You know, I can tell you this, I buy enough gear from the install guys that I deal with at Sweetwater that I get really cool deals, and they're really good about standing behind gear, specifically the Behringer and Midas stuff, which a lot of guys are gravitating away from that because they're not offering any service or anything in North America now but Sweetwater is. Sweetwater is the only retailer who is doing in-house repairs and stuff like that, and will stand behind the gear. So I'm still selling M32s like crazy. I'm still installing them like crazy, and people are happy with them. It's an industry standard. Everywhere you go, everybody knows an M32. They're comfortable on it. No one complains. You'd be surprised the national riders that thing will fit into and do just fine with. So if you're looking for somebody to kind of do that kind of stuff, if you're having some problems at your church, I spent, 15 years inside of church production before I went back out into the secular market. And once my kids got old enough to kind of, go out on their own and get in college and stuff like that, I went back into the secular market because there was really a lot more money there. And, I kind of know my way around the church thing, so love to help you out with that. Love to, fix your audio problems. We're a full service company, so we do just about everything from band bookings and artist development all the way up to, AV install and, live sound, mobile staging. You guys that know me and follow me, you know what my deal is because you see me on Facebook all the time. Those that are new, I am in the Mid-Atlantic. I live in West Virginia, about 90 minutes west of the DC Baltimore metro area. That is my service area, the DC metro area, Baltimore metro area. So, man, I go where the money's at. So if you got the money, I got the time. See you guys next time.